What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and with football returning this week, I wanted to break down the Chicago Bears before the 2024 NFL season. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You guys know how to use YouTube. This is going to be a three-part series in one video, a draft class breakdown, a roster breakdown, and a records prediction. So super excited for that. Let's get right into this. Starting out with the draft class. It was a small one, but it was a really good one. I didn't really have anything to complain about. Started out with Caleb Williams. Yes, that's not his actual number, but I literally wanted to make sure that I kept these slides as original as possible from the original time. And who gives a shit if the 3 turns into an 8? Because Caleb Williams, regardless, is fantastic. Super excited for him. Rome Odunze is going to be that longer-term receiver that is going to be that nice, beautiful 1, 2, 3 punch there with DJ Moore. So I'm super excited for that. But, for me, I thought Rome Odunze was, it was properly valued. Some people thought he was the best player in the draft. I was not there, but I really did like the acquisition. Karan Amagaji at pick 75 was honestly a pretty solid move. I thought it might have been a little bit early for him because of the fact that he had that quad injury to where you couldn't see him at the Senior Bowl, which really bummed me out because I was excited about him. He was kind of a my guy throughout the entire year, and then it sucked not to be able to see him live in person, but still a fantastic player, really nice developmental piece. Torrey Taylor in the 4th round, great punter. I just have seen a lot of special teams guys that you don't need to spend a 4th round pick on. It's a pretty damn high pick, but the grade is an A, so it's not really a bad pick. Like, it's my least favorite pick for a reason. It's just because pretty early for a special teamer, but he's a really damn good special teamer. And then you got Austin Booker at 144 that you ended up trading back into the draft for, which was really, really good value at a position that you guys need to start trying to throw more stuff at. So very excited for that. Honestly, short, simple, sweet, but very, very good. So jumping into the offense, this is a really good group. We're going to be going from skill position to offensive line, then defensive line to skilled position. Starting out with the quarterback, Caleb Williams. Already discussed him, but to me, he is going to be the MVP, so to speak, of the offense. He's super dynamic. I think he will have more growing pains than what we want to admit, but he's already shown out exactly the type of talent that you drafted him number 1 for, so that's awesome. But looking at the running back crew, you got DeAndre Swift, you got Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson. That's one hell of a trio. And Roschon Johnson as your 3rd running back, that's just ridiculous. He is a really talented guy. You got, our boy Kari Blassingham at fullback. That's great. Power to you. I'm not a big fullback guy, but my guy David Miller is. And I'm sure you Bears fans know about him. But also looking at the tight end position, because I always skip out on that when I talk about receivers. Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, Mercedes Lewis. Not necessarily the best guru, but far, far, far from the worst. 2 really competent tight ends. Again, where you're not knocking my socks off with a talent that is, on prime Zach Ertz level, or obviously you can talk about the greats, but I'm trying to be a little bit more close to what Kmet is, because I think we all agree that he's not going to be prime George Kittle, Travis Kelce, Gronk, anywhere near that. But we're talking about him maybe as a solid top 10 tight end in the NFL, maybe top 15. I know some people want to put him top 5. It's cool. That's okay. You can have your fun with trying to say that. But at the end of the day, I think we all can agree that he's a top half of the league tight end. And then having Gerald Everett, who is a former starting tight end for multiple teams behind him, is actually quite a nice amount of depth there. Wide receiver wise, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, elite receiving group. Rome Odunze is just not part of the best unit just because he hasn't fully proven himself yet. But you're talking about absolutely amazing weapons. I put Velus Jones the notable backup just because I think we all are at that point where it's like, since he's been drafted, when I think wasn't he like something 26 when he was drafted in the 3rd round? It's kind of nuts. There have not been too many mistakes by this regime, and this was, keeping this guy on roster, in my opinion, is kind of one of them. He was a gadget player at Tennessee and a gadget offense, but I think that there's no need to rub it in. But it is a little bit thin at wide receiver at the moment. You're looking at 6 wide receivers on roster total. DeAndre Carter, Tyler Scott, the other notable backups at receiver. So, a little bit concerning there, praying that these guys get to stay healthy because the top end talent is fantastic. I could have put that depth as like more of the weakness, because, being able to get Coleman and Shelton, I'm actually going to jump straight to center, by the way. I ended up having center being the weakness before you guys ended up bringing him on. He was a center for the Niners last year and honestly did not do too bad. It was his career year, so super excited for him to come into the fray because I know center's been an ass position for the Bears. So, at least getting some consistency there. Tevin Jenkins, someone who I was notoriously saying he should play guard when he was a right tackle there at Oklahoma State. And I thought he's done well when he's been on the field. I think that he has a ton of potential. Maybe you can sign him to a contract that is representative of the risk that you take with his injury and skill set for that matter. Nate Davis, for me, I'm not like blown away. I don't think anybody's going to say this is a top 3 or top 5, top 10 interior offensive line. But unlike a lot of the teams I've been talking about, there's not a particular unit in this squad that I think is, bottom third. Maybe you could talk about the tackles because, Braxton Jones, there's a reason you drafted Karan Amagaji. Some people still believe you can go after left tackle, but he's had his ups. There's still hope there, absolutely. And it's not like Evan Neal where it's like, almost arrogance that you're just trying your best not to admit the fault. But Darnell Wright, he was one of my favorite players. I think he was my top tackle in that draft, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So excited to see him doing well. But let's get on with it. Let's see, and let's talk about that defense. Talking about the defense, something that I literally had to pause my recording to go double check is you guys don't have anybody who's starting right now who's up for a contract. That is freaking awesome. I literally stopped to go and triple check. I'm like, did I miss something? But no. So you guys have a lot of really solid talent. Those that are still developing are still under contract, and those who are really proven are even under longer term contract. Because I could have put Johnson as the MVP of this team. It's more for fun than anything. Don't take that too seriously. But looking at this team, talked about going from defensive line to that secondary. Montez Sweat, awesome. I mean, I really do love that acquisition that you guys got for him. Obviously, when you saw Chase Young go for a 3rd round pick, you're like, damn, kind of wish that we could have been, maybe a little bit more of a deal steal right there. But I think that we're all pretty damn happy in retrospect. Billings, Dexter, a solid defensive interior. You got Pickens there as well. I don't think that it's going to be knocking anyone's socks off. I think that we're really needing a big step up from Gervin Dexter. And, he's had those flashes to where you can have that faith. But when you're at this point of the Bears franchise to where, yes, you do have maybe a year or 2 to be flexible before, Caleb wants to get that extension. Like, you do have some wiggle room for development, but you really want to optimize Jalen Johnson's prime, right? You want to be able to take Jaquan Brisker on that rookie deal, Tyreek Stevenson on that rookie deal, your linebackers on excellent deals, Montez Sweat on a solid deal for multiple years. Like, this is the prime time to be able to get that massive push in the NFC to where I think you could try to make a push for the Super Bowl within a year or 2 if Caleb Williams irons out the kinks a little bit quicker than expected. So maybe there is some room for improvement there. I think that I'm a bit more optimistic about the defensive interior than some Bears fans. But the edge core really does need the help. I hope Austin Booker can accelerate his development to where he could be a starter. I just didn't see that from him. I think he's a really, really nice depth rotational guy who can get some reps in there, keep the starters fresh. But, when we're talking about DeMarcus Walker and Dominique Robinson being, the guys who are kind of like next up, not necessarily the most optimistic about that front. Linebacker wise though, Edmonds, Edwards, talk about Sanborn, Sewell, like that's arguably one of the better linebacker squads in terms of depth and talent. And you paid for it, but at the end of the day, the payment I think is paying off. And, maybe they're not the best linebackers on planet Earth, but you have a really solid group. And a lot of NFL teams cannot say that. Linebacker is one of the toughest positions to really nail down. So, for the value that you've spent, I thought that you guys have done a very good job. Safety-wise, Byard, Brisker. Byard's not like the crazy super talent that he used to be, but Brisker, I think, is fantastic. Again, Byard is still a really solid veteran there. I'm really hoping that you guys can end up addressing that safety position this upcoming draft, which luckily for you, there's a lot of really good ones. So I think you can easily do that. Kyler Gordon is a really solid nickel. I think that you theoretically could try to upgrade from that, but At the end of the day, you don't really need to. He's still very, very competent. Then you got Stevenson and Johnson. Stevenson, extremely underrated. He was one of my top guys coming into the year, back before you ended up drafting him. And then Jalen Johnson is fantastic. Probably should have gotten the MVP, but at the end of the day, who gives a shit? We're having a good time here. So that's going to be the roster. Let's get right into the records prediction. And getting right into this is cumulative. So if you guys are wondering why I chose this record where we're starting out at 5-4, there's plenty of other videos for you guys to be able to check that out. Does that mean that this is immutable, that you cannot change it? No. But for the most part, I like to keep things the same unless I feel very confident about something that has changed. But at week number 1, you're facing off against the Tennessee Titans. They got a new coach. They got a new whole entire system in there. And, they're still putting pieces together. I really do like the team, but I think the Chicago Bears are better well-rounded. They're more well-rounded in that regard. So I'll be leaving us with the W there. The Texans, I think, are a superpower. I don't really think that people are giving them the credit they deserve. And their weakness is defensive interior, and I think the weakness on this team, if Tevin Jenkins especially gets hurt, is offensive interior. And it's not like you actually have a bad offensive interior. It's just I do think that, if you had the Chiefs level offensive interior, this is almost a wash because of the fact that you're going to be able to ground and pound the whole time. I don't think that's the case. I do think the Texans are going to try to put on a show at home, and maybe there's going to be a game or two that I flip, but it's going to be way too early for Caleb to be effective, in my opinion, versus a top tier team like that. The Colts are really, really, really talented. This is going to come down solely to Anthony Richardson as to whether he can really put all the pieces together and get back to where he was. So the Colts are a very, very good team. Do not count them out. It's just, receiving wise, you could end up beating up on this team, but I also have some faith in some guys that they do have. And I do think the Colts are going to be one of those under the radar teams that could slip a couple extra wins than maybe I have given them. But this is one of the wins I gave them. But the Rams going to y'all's house. Whose house? Bears' house. But, jokes aside, but I think that the Rams, they're talented enough to beat the Bears. I really do think they are. But I also think that without Tyler Higbee, it's not going to be that big of a differential. But, I'm trying to think of things that could slightly turn the tide because both these teams are extremely talented. McVay is an extremely talented coach. I will be giving the Bears a little bit of a nod in this one just because I do really believe in home field advantage. Now, statistically, that might not be the case, but I do think that with all the BS that goes on in the NFL, there is that balance of RNG, so to speak, for the gamers out there, that random number generator where random stuff happens in the NFL and we just have no idea why, that I do think that it's okay to have a game or two that doesn't fully logically add up. Just like the Jaguars in week number 6. I really like the Jags. I do this year. But I think they're pretty equal in talent to the Bears. It's a hot take, but I really do believe in the Jaguars because I do think that there is a lot more attention focused on their regime. And I also think that home field advantage for the Bears is not nearly as potent versus a team that practices in Florida and deals with all of that garbage as a team who lives in LA and, kind of vibes in an indoor stadium. So I will be giving this one to Jacksonville. I cannot give home wins every single time, but I do think this is certainly a discussable game for maybe us to flip later. This is a tough game, but I do think that with that extra bye week and with the fact that I do think there's a talent superiority, the Bears will beat the Commanders. The Cardinals are a very underrated roster. I already have them going 5-12, so I'm already being a dick as it is. I'm going to be leaving that game as is. Patriots, after losing Judon, I don't really think there's very much contest for them at week number 10 versus the Bears at home. So leaving it as is, the Packers and the Bears are both very talented teams. I think it's going to be a brawl for the top there, especially even with the Lions as well. With an extra week of rest, I am going to be leaning towards the Packers and beating the Bears in week number 11. So, I feel like that's pretty fair to say. You have an extra week of preparation versus a rookie. I think it's logical. The Lions as well. This is a brutal part of the schedule. Goddamn. You know what? Fuck the Jaguars, by the way. We're flipping that game. It was too close. I don't feel comfortable giving because I'm personally going to be giving both of these home wins to their respective teams. The lights are going to be bright. Maybe Caleb Williams will shine in it, but I do think that the Lions are a better constructed roster in terms of just balance. And then the Niners, this is their year. They just paid Trent Williams today, and they're going to need to go pedal to the metal. But I will be having you actually split games with both Green Bay as well as the Lions. I don't really think that there's going to be a sweep in this division in any way, shape, or form. I think it's fair to be able to have a nice balance in terms of splitting with all the teams, especially with the youth on the roster and such, which leaves us at 9-8, which is a really freaking good record, right? It's something where I know Bears fans are going to be like, oh, I want to be 12-5. And maybe you could flip this Seattle game here. I already said screw the Jaguars. So, I mean, I already flipped a game for you, but it's a tough schedule. I mean, you could talk about the Cardinals, the Colts. Like, those are two games. If you want to get up that 11 win total, I think that's your easiest path to it. The Vikings, to be fair, they are kind of in a little bit of a struggle bus. I could easily flip that game. I don't really think they're going to be. Oh, they're dealing with a lot of shit. You know what, Vikings fans? Take it. All right. The Bears are going 10-6 or 10-7, excuse me. So, I mean, I love you guys. So I got to do that for you. The Vikings there's a lot of shit going on there. So I feel bad for them, but no pity wins in this. That's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. Love y'all. See you on the far side. Peace.